I'm Monica Wilson with Gaia. That's the Global Alliance for Incinerator Alternatives. Gaia is a network, having every technical issue today. Gaia is a network of communities in over 90 countries who are fighting to stop the practice of waste incineration, to stop burying trash in landfills, and to work for zero waste systems that will bring us closer to a just world, to the toxic-free world that we all want to see. When I talk about incineration, I'm talking about burning trash. I'm also talking about gasification, pyrolysis, and other kinds of incinerators. They have the same types of issues. And there are lots of reasons why communities around the world come together to stand up against incinerator proposals. This is from a protest from a successful campaign in Bandung, Indonesia, against a waste incinerator. And they're also calling for real solutions to the problems of waste and plastics. I think this picture helps share a lot of the key issues that communities organize around, that we as a movement organize around for stopping the practice of waste incineration and of waste, period. First of all, we don't smoke, so why does our city? Right? It's a good question. Waste incinerators, when you burn something in a waste incinerator, it doesn't just go away. You actually create a lot of toxic pollution that's coming out of the smokestack, it's coming out in the ash. We're talking about dioxin, mercury, other heavy metals, nanoparticulates galore of every type and shape that you can possibly imagine, because think about what's going in and how it gets combined when it all gets burned. And it gets created and creates new toxic, even more toxic chemicals than what was going in the first place. When you think about PCBs that are in plastics out in the ocean, right, and other persistent organic pollutants that are accumulating on those plastics, if you burn that, huge other problem. So it's transferring one problem to another, and I don't call that a solution. Another related issue is that coming out of the smokestack is also carbon dioxide. Incinerators actually release more CO2 than a coal-fired power plant if you compare how much energy is being created. So there's huge links between waste and climate change. Not just when you burn waste, not just when we put waste in the landfill and methane gets created, which is a very potent greenhouse gas. But when you look at the whole life cycle of stuff as it's flowing through our society, if you look at the extraction, the production, the disposal of stuff, that all adds up to 29% of US greenhouse gas emissions. 29% is from our stuff, how it's made and how we throw it away. Now I'd like to get to the next sign, which is about cost. Incinerators are incredibly expensive for the community that they're lived in, they're placed in. This sign says, oh, can you go back, please? I didn't mean to hit that. It says $170 a ton to burn. That's what the citizens of Detroit were paying to burn their trash in their incinerator. This is a protest by junior high students in front of City Hall saying, we need to have another strategy here. This is not working for us. The city of Detroit has spent over $1 billion in the last 20 years on their waste incinerator. $1 billion from a city that cannot afford to be wasting money as if it had no value. So related to that also is jobs. If you recycle waste instead of burn it, you create 10 times as many jobs. And in a city like Detroit, again, that's a really critical issue for the local economy and for the people that live there. All of this ties in together to environmental justice, because the single leading indicator of where a new waste facility is going to get built in the United States, where a new landfill or incinerator gets built, is the race of the community that it's being proposed in. So race is a critical issue. It gets to the core of what we do with waste in our society. I have some bad news and some good news to share about incineration in the US, particularly. The bad news is that there are dozens of communities across the country who are fighting new incinerator proposals right now. There are a little over 90 incinerators across the country, but there are dozens of new proposals right now. The other bad news is that the industry has convinced legislators, many legislators, that burning garbage, that burning plastics is renewable energy, which boggles my mind every time I think about it. Plastics, renewable energy, do we want to keep doing this? Is this a system we want to lock ourselves into? Because you get locked into that system. You get a put or pay contract when you build an incinerator, and you can't get out of it. You have to deliver the garbage. Incinerators are garbage addicts. They need the plastics to burn. That's how they work, right? So the fundamental operating principles of an incinerator and how they're economically viable for this multi-billion dollar industry is born on constantly giving it more trash, constantly giving it more plastics. The good news is that communities have managed to stop also many, many proposals across the US for new incinerators. They're fighting a David and Goliath battle, though. Let's be honest, right? A multi-billion dollar industry going up against community by community by community. So it's a hard fight in every single place where this happens. And that's why we have to fight to stop there any new incentives for renewable energy or any other greenwashing terms that people call incineration. The other good news is that this incinerator right here, this is the Detroit incinerator, it was shut down last month. After 20 years of operating, it was shut down. It's huge. And the community of Detroit, the people of Detroit are working very hard to make sure it stays shut and that zero waste jobs, the zero waste program replaces the Detroit incinerator. I'm going to share a few, sorry, if I can have the next slide, please. This doesn't seem to be working for me. I'm going to go to quick trip to Kerala, where we just heard about Kerala. It was a great tie-in for me. Kerala is in southern India. We're going to look at a few other communities that have said there has to be another way. We're not going to keep wasting plastics and other waste in landfills and incinerators. There has to be a better way. So in Kerala, this is a beautiful beach community. You can see this, right? Tourists come from all over the world to hang out on Kovalam's beaches. So many, in fact, that they left plastics all over the place. About 10 years ago, guidebooks started saying, don't go to Kovalam. There's too much plastic on the beaches. It's from all the tourism waste. And the government wanted to build a bunch of new incinerators to deal with all the tourism plastics. Crazy idea. The local community said, no way. That is going to hurt our tourism industry more than anything. So they worked together. They stopped the proposals. They started Zero Waste Kovalam, where one of the principles is replacing plastics, replacing single-use plastics that tourists use, like bowls and cups and water bottles, replacing those with indigenous materials like coconut shells. And these women's cooperatives are employing now hundreds of women locally in new jobs who are making renewable products out of coconut shells and replacing plastics. I think that's a very powerful story. Let's see if I could go to the next slide, which is in Alaminos in the Philippines. This is another tourist destination. It's near a national park. It's a beautiful place. You wouldn't guess so from looking at the dump site, right? This is called garbage tourism, the trip that we're all taking today on all of these presentations. So this is the dump site in Alaminos. And until a year ago, everything was dumped here. Tourism waste, household waste, business waste. A new project now is creating zero waste approaches in the neighborhoods. There's a recycling and composting site in many neighborhoods. They're using the compost on the farms that grow the food for the childhood, sorry, there's the picture of those sites, for a program to prevent childhood malnutrition. And that's a really unique partnership. I think there's a lot of innovative partnerships we can find when we're finding real solutions to stopping plastics, to stopping waste. The next place we're going to go on our tour is really close by, actually, is San Francisco. And we're going to make it, I know. So San Francisco has another innovative partnership. This is between the city, the waste and recycling company, and the union of all the workers at that waste and recycling company. They're unionized by the Teamsters. They have created an amazing commitment to zero waste. They've hit 77% diversion this year, which is huge. It's the highest of any U.S. city. It's very inspiring. And their commitment is to good jobs, quality jobs with decent pay, with good benefits, and with respect. Because the people who sort through our recyclables every day deserve our respect and our gratitude. The other thing that San Francisco is doing is phasing out disposable one-use products from restaurants. So when you get your stuff in a restaurant and you decide you need to have a takeout container, it has to be recyclable, it has to be compostable. That means no styrofoam. And that's a growing movement across the world, actually. A lot of places are doing that. Let's move on to Italy really quickly. Italy loves zero waste. There's a lot of communities that have embraced zero waste. Over 300 communities in Italy have hit 80% recycling. 80% recycling, just imagine, right? 300 communities, really, really exciting. And one of the things that I love they're doing, they're using refillable milk bottles. They take these to their milk refilling stations, and you get your fresh milk directly from the farmers, benefits the community, avoids plastic, milk bottles, same thing that they're doing with water. The last place I want to go is Brazil, where there's a national movement of waste pickers, or as in Brazil, they like to call themselves catadores or recyclers. This movement represents almost 1 million people. And these recyclers are now working with the government of Brazil. This is President Lula and Severino Lima, who's one of the leaders of this catadores movement. The government of Brazil now recognizes the catadores, recognizes the role they're playing in society to pick up the recycling, to clean up Brazil. And they're not only recognizing them, the people that are often shunned or ignored by society, they're working with them to make sure that they get higher wages and to make sure that they are most effective at picking stuff up and getting to a better system. So all of these examples are what inspire me to believe that we can come together to find systemic solutions that don't involve burning waste, don't involve burying waste, but really stem the tide of plastics and of waste at the source. Thank you very much.